Could a single coat and a steady heartbeat really topple the world's most feared prison and vanish into thin air? Harry Shakes Lee stood in the dim light of Eastern State Penitentiary's laundry workshop, every nerve on fire as he slipped the stolen guard's coat over his broad shoulders. He felt the weight of months of secret planning in the wool fabric, the rough stitches slightly itchy against his skin, but he welcomed the discomfort, any sign that he was still alive and in control. Around him, the prison's Gothic arches rose like silent sentinels, their jagged windows half shattered, casting twisted shadows on the cold stone floors. He pressed the cap down just enough to shadow his eyes, then exhaled, tasting the metallic tang of adrenaline in his mouth. For weeks, he'd memorized every detail. The exact moment the day shift guard paused to light his cigarette, the soft shuffle of boots on the marble corridor, the brief flicker of the Countmaster's lantern as he called out inmate numbers. Lee's entire world had narrowed to the slim window between the evening count and the lockdown. Just 15 minutes when the gate swung open for fresh air in the yard. He'd watched from the bakery oven's crack, tasting flour dust on his tongue, as the guard on duty bent to collect rolling pins, leaving his coat draped on a bench. Lee had waited until the guard's back was turned, then moved like a shadow, sliding the coat and cap into his own cells, hiding them under his mattress for days, nursing them like a secret child. In the silence of his cell at night, he traced the coat's buttons with calloused fingers, rehearsing each motion until it was as natural as breathing. Now, in the pale glow of dusk, he stepped from the kitchen corridor, shoulders squared, his gaze steady as he walked toward the main gate. The clank of keys in his pocket was real. He'd lifted them from the guard during a staged scuffle over flour sacks, but no one heard a struggle in the chatter of inmates returning from work detail. Lee approached the heavy iron gate that towered above him, its paint peeling like old skin, and for a heartbeat, time slowed. The guard greeting his shift leaned forward to speak to a colleague, the weight of his rifle drifting down as he scratched an itch on his neck. Lee brought the stolen keys to the lock, the teeth fitting perfectly, and the bolt slid back with a muted click that sounded loud in Lee's ears. He straightened, took one calm breath, and pushed the gate open. As it swung wide, he stepped through, crossing the threshold from prison darkness into the gray light of early twilight. Behind him, the gate creaked shut, the lock snapping into place. But Lee didn't look back. He walked forward, melding into the line of workers carrying lunch pails, the distant whistle of a factory punctuating the air like a starting pistol. His boots echoed on the cobblestones as he moved with purpose, cap pulled low, coat buttoned tightly around his chest as though it were his own skin. He felt every eye pass over him and find nothing unusual, just another guard finishing his shift. In those moments, Lee tasted freedom with every step, a sweetness so sharp it burned. But he also felt the weight of each second ticking by, counting down until the alarm would sound. For days after, Eastern State was gripped by panic. Guards combed through cell blocks, hurling flashlights into dark corners. Bloodhounds snarled and strained at leashes as they picked up a scent that drifted away into the city streets. Investigators scoured the laundry room, dusting for fingerprints on coat buttons and cap rims. Rumors exploded. Some said Lee had used a tunnel. Others whispered of bribed guards or hidden maps. Yet the truth remained invisible behind Lee's perfect disguise. While the prison descended into chaos, Lee melted into the urban sprawl. First in South Philadelphia's tenements, where he swapped his guard's cap for a flat cap and his coat for a drab overcoat, blending with factory workers and policemen alike. Each change was surgical, a new mask drawn over his face, yet his eyes remained the same, sharp, alert, restless. He moved north along the river, boarding freight trains under cover of night, sleeping in boxcars sealed with coal dust, his mind racing through every contingency. He listened to radio broadcasts for news of his own escape, noting how the anchors stumbled over his nickname, Shakes, and how detectives speculated on the method of his vanishing. Lee memorized each detail, then stayed 2 steps ahead, crossing into New Jersey before police cars could seal the bridges, slipping through farm country roads where no one asked questions. Months passed in this fugitive existence. The constant fear of a patrol car's headlights slicing through fog, the ache of sleeping on hay in a barn loft, the bitter coffee purchased from a silent gas station attendant who guessed nothing. He survived on dregs of soup and stolen bread, always with an ear for approaching boots, always ready to dive into ditches at the faintest click of a distant rifle. But behind the fear, Lee felt a rush of power. He had outsmarted a fortress designed to break men's spirits. He had become a myth in his own time, a phantom wearing a guard's badge, ghosting through the underbelly of cities.
In winter's deep freeze, he halted in a farmhouse in rural Pennsylvania, trading work for food in exchange for keeping his face hidden. It was there that a farmhand, curious about the stranger's uniform, asked too many questions. Where did he get the coat? Why did a guard agree to soil his uniform in barn chores? The man mentioned a new guard selling moonshine from a hidden barrel, and word reached local law enforcement. One morning, Lee stepped outside to gather eggs and found black and white cars circling the yard, lights flashing like ominous stars. His heart thundered as he realized his time was up. He tossed the coat on a hay bale and stood with hands raised, still calm, almost proud. The arresting officer read him his rights, but Lee heard them as distant echoes, as if he'd already moved on. Back in the stone corridors of Eastern State, he once again passed beneath the Gothic arches, but this time the shadows felt different, less oppressive, more like old friends welcoming him home. In the cell block, other inmates whispered of his walkout, of how he had escaped without a fight, a tunnel, or a single shot fired. Psychologists later studied his case as the ultimate test of perception, how a man can become invisible simply by stepping into the role of authority. Experts in identity theory called it a masterclass in imposter phenomenon, proving that the mind can reshape reality. And though Harry Shakes Lee spent years in solitary after his return, his legend grew beyond prison walls, inspiring debates in law schools and guard training academies. Today, when guards patrol Eastern State's ruinous halls, they ask themselves, if a single coat and the steady heartbeat could break free once, could it happen again? And would we even see it coming?